Hello everyone, in this chapter we are going to have a survey of authors. We will going to discover well-known international and Filipino authors who contributed big in the field of literature. But before that, we will first define what is surveying of authors. So in other words, surveying of authors is collecting data of the authors or the one who make a creative work, literary works, or other literary work intended for publication. So we have here a survey of authors defined as knowing the authors and their contribution to literature in general. So let us first start a well-known author in the Philippines. So we have here Nick Joaquin. Nick Joaquin was born on May 4, 1917 in Manila and died April 29, 2004. So he is a Filipino novelist, poet, playwright, essayist, and biographer whose works present the diverse heritage of the Filipino author. So Nick Joaquin have a big contribution in the field of Philippine literature. He used his pseudonym as Quijano de Manila when he started writing for the magazine of Philippine Free Press in 1950. So this Quijano means an anagram of his surname. So Nick Joaquin have lots of published books and articles that are still used by many today or viewed by many today. So another one we have so these are the notable works of Nick Joaquin. The Woman Who Had Two Navels examines his country's various heritages. A portrait of the artist as Filipino. The Aquinos of Tarlac, and is an essay on history as Three Generation and the Cave of Shadows. So as Philippine literary author, Nick Joaquin writes many articles or literary works that points the Philippines or the history of the Philippines, and he also have work that depicts the happenings or the real life happenings in the Philippines. For example, this Cave and Shadows during martial law under Marcos. He also has Culture and History, the occasional notes on the process of Philippine becoming. Another one is Manila, My Manila, A History of the Young. D.M. Guevara's story, Mr. If.E.U., the culture hero that was Nicanor Reyes, and The Ballad of Five Battles. If you will have to browse in the internet, Philippine literary writers or authors writes their articles or pieces that are usually the real life happenings here in the Philippines, and so as the other writers, not just Nick Joaquin. The second one we have here, Carlos P. Romulo. He is a national artist of literature during 1982. So this year, he was awarded as the National Artist of the Philippines. His multifaceted career spanned 50 years of public service as an educator, survey, soldier, university president, journalist, and diplomat. So at that 50 years, he has he becomes a publisher of um, lots of literary works. Carlos P. Romulo, he became a reporter at the age of 16. Imagine, at that very young age, he already contributed something in the field of literature. And that becomes Carlos Romulo a asset of the Philippine literary authors. And at the age of 10, a newspaper editor. At the age of 20, he becomes a newspaper editor, and at the age of 32, he becomes a publisher of his own literary works. He was the only Asian to win America's coveted Pulitzer Prize in journalism for a series of articles predicting the outbreak of World War II. So, as you can notice, I think all Philippine literary authors have written literary pieces which depicts the real life happening of the Philippines. And Romulo in all wrote and published 18 books. So here are his notable works. The United, it is a novel. And I Walked with Heroes, it is an autobiography. Another one, I Saw the Fall of the Philippines, Mother America, I See the Philippines Rise. So these are his literary works, which are the wartime memoirs of Philippines. 40 years a Third World soldier at the UN. His memoirs of his many years affiliation with United Nations. He also wrote The Philippine Presidents, his oral history of his experiences serving all the Philippine presidents. Another one, the third one, we have Dr. Jose Rizal, our very own national hero. So his real name, Jose Protasio Rizal Mercado y Alonzo Realonda. He is born in June 19, 1861 at Calamba, Philippines, and died on December 30, 1896. So Dr. Jose Rizal, he was born in a fortunate family. That is why he has studied in many schools. At the age of 8, Dr. Jose Rizal already written Sa Aking Mga Kababata. It is a poem that points to the Filipino children. It is his first literary work. At the age of 8, he becomes a leader of propaganda movement, contributing numerous articles to its newspaper. And Rizal was arrested and publicly executed by a firing squad in Manila, and after he was accused as part of Katipunan. That is why Dr. Jose Rizal died because of that accusation. So a Filipino nationalist secret society revolted against Spain. So this Katipunan, it is a secret society wherein Dr. Jose Rizal accused as one of those members in that Katipunan or that secret society. But before his death, Dr. Jose Rizal already written when he was imprisoned at it is entitled Ultimo Adios, or The Last Farewell. It is a masterpiece of 19th century Spanish verse, his last work written when he was executed in the eve of Fort Santiago. So this is the last article he was written before his death. So, Dr. Jose Rizal's notable works includes No Limitang Here or The Social Cancer, El Filibusterismo, The Reign of Greed, and La Solidaridad. So, he's very, the literary work that rise in the Philippine literary world is No Limitang Here or The Social Cancer. It is a passionate exposure of the evils of Spanish rule in the Philippines. So this is it is a book which exposes the works of Spaniards, the rules of Spaniards towards the Philippines. And this El Filibusterismo or the Reign of Greed established his reputation as the leading spokesman of Philippine reform movement. So these books were published and became very popular until now. Another one we have Ricky Lee. Mr. Ricardo Lee is the greatest screenwriter the Philippine cinema. He is also a journalist, novelist, and playwright. So Ricky Lee or Ricardo Lee, he becomes a great asset in Philippine cinema. In a span of 40 years, he has written countless of literary pieces, from essays, short stories, novels, plays, and over 150 screenplays. And that becomes Ricky Lee an asset in the Philippine cinema. He earned more than 50 trophies from different award-giving bodies like FAMAS, FAP, Gawad Urian, Golden Screen, Maria Clara, MMFF, Star Awards, World Premieres, Film Festival, and Young Critics Circle. So Ricky Lee made a conviction to only write his literary pieces in a Filipino, and up until today, he has been true to his word. So he made, when he became a literary author, he promised to himself that he will only write Filipino articles since he is a Filipino, and that he became true to his word. Now we will be browsing his notable works. It includes Himala, Jose Rizal, The Floor, Contemplation, Story, Moro Ami, and Death Row. These are screenplays for acclaimed films. Huwag Mong Kwentuhan Ang Batang Si Weng Fu and Servado Magdamag, his short stories that won first prize at Don Carlos Palanca Memorial Awards, and Cullion, an award-winning writer's most recent screenplay, a historical film that tells the story of the lives of people afflicted with Hansen's disease who were brought to the remote island of Cullion to live a life away from their loved ones. So Ricky Lee, before he achieved these awards, this success, Ricky Lee comes from he comes from an abandoned family. So as he strives hard, he becomes this successful and becomes an asset in the Philippine literary world. Another one, Francisco Balagtas, won a number of awards and known as Ama ng Balagtasan. A very well-known and highly regarded poet, he was developed by these two personalities. So before Francisco Balagtas becomes very popular and have this literary works in the field of literature, he has two persons. He has two persons where he relied on, Dr. Mariano Pilapil and Jose de la Cruz, where these two personalities becomes his basis in achieving quality of works. These two personalities help him develop in his writing style and his literary published works. Balthasar is also known for writing his poems in Tagalog instead of Spanish to show resistance to Spanish rule. So, similar with Ricky Lee, Francisco Balagtas also written Tagalog articles in order to showcase resistance to the rules of Spaniards. So these are his notable works. His very one and only notable works that rise in the field of literature is Florante at Laura, also known as Pinagdaan ng Buhay ni Florante at Laura sa Kaharian ng Albania. This is his most notable and famous works based on his life situation. It is a work, story that offers his life situation towards her unreachable love of his life. And also La India Elegante y El Negrito Amante, it is a short play, and Orasman at Zafira, a commedia in 3 parts. So Francisco Balagtas has lots of literary works, but I only include here his notable works or the known works of him. Okay, let us now proceed to the well-known international authors or foreign authors. So I researched these international authors according to their contribution to literary world. So I ranked them according to their published books. So the first one we have here, Leo Tolstoy, or Lev Nikolaevich, born on August 28, 1829, and died November 7, 1910. A novel by Tolstoy is not a work of art, but a piece of life, according to the British poet and critic Matthew Arnold. And according also to Isaac Babel, if the world could write by itself, it would write like Tolstoy. So from these two authors, we can say that Leo Tolstoy really contributed a lot in the field of literature. His work include War and Peace and Anna Karenina, which are commonly regarded as among the finest novels ever written. So these are the two very famous work of Leo Tolstoy. So the next one we have here, William Shakespeare. He was born on April 26, 1564, and died April 23, 1616. An English poet, playwright, and actor, widely regarded as the greatest writer in the English language and the world's preeminent dramatist, often called England's national poet and the Bard of Avon. He is also called the Bard of Avon. His extant works, including some collaboration, consist of around 38 plays, 154 sonnets, 2 long narrative poems, and a few other verses. And this 154 sonnets, for me, it is familiar to me because William Shakespeare's sonnets are quite beautiful to read. And I also browse his sonnets in the internet. He then wrote mainly tragedies until about 1608, including Hamlet, Othello, King Lear, and Macbeth, considered some of the finest works in English language. So this written literary piece by William Shakespeare or rose as the finest work in English literature. Another one we have James Joyce. James Augustine Aloysius Joyce, born on February 2, 1882 and died January 13, 1941. He is an Irish novelist noted for his experimental use of language and exploration of new literary methods in such large works of fiction such as Ulysses in 1922 and Finnegan's Wake. So James Joyce also has these two literary works which rose as the finest work in English literary world. So these are the large works of fiction. We have here Clark Dickens, Charles Dickens, or Charles John Eupham Dickens, born on February 7, 1812 and died in June 8, 1870. He is an English novelist, generally considered as the greatest of the Victorian era. A Christmas Carol, David Copperfield, Bleak House, A Tale of Two Cities, Great Expectations, and Our Mutual Friend. These are his work that enabled his fame to spread worldwide very quickly. So these literary articles he was written becomes his asset of becoming famous in worldwide. Another one we have here Gustave Flaubert, born on December 12, 1829 and died May 8, 1880. He is a novelist regarded as the prime mover of the Realist school of French literature and best known for his masterpiece Madame Bovary in the year 1857, a realist portrayal of bourgeois life which led to a trial on charges of the novel's alleged immorality. So Gustave Flaubert becomes famous in his writing Madame Bovary. So this is a realistic life of bourgeois life. So as you can notice, many literary writers, international literary writers, also written literary pieces which portray a real life situation. They just somewhat change the setting. They just change the setting of the story. But when you read the flow or when you view the flow of their story, it is somewhat depicted the situation of their real life. That is why some of the literary writers, after publishing their works, some of them get imprisoned because of the resistance of the rules of their country. Another one we have here, Jane Austen, born on December 16, 1775 in England and died July 18, 1817. She is an English writer who first gave the novel its distinctly modern character through her treatment of ordinary people and everyday life. So Jane Austen his first literary piece in a parallel to her character. Is her work titled Sense and Sensibility. Another one is Pride and Prejudice, Mansfield Park, and Emma. So these are novels, define the era's novel of manners, but they also become timeless classics that remain critical and popular successes for over 2 centuries after her death. So her works, even though her death comes, her works become timeless or becomes viewed by many, for it somewhat gives entertainment, or it stand out in that particular year. So we are done with our discussion for today. It is all about the survey of authors. So actually, we have lots of Filipino and international authors, but I only include here in my presentation the famous authors that contributed a lot in the field of literary world. So here are the references of my research. You can, if you have some clarification, or you want to have a concrete when you want to have a concrete information, you can browse these references included below. I am Eliza Candelanza from BS Ed English 3A, and thank you for listening.